I want to speak plainly today, and perhaps in some ways I want to play the blame game, but in some ways I also want to look at what Lord Darragh has said. Firstly, let's acknowledge the truth. Brexit has failed, not in the abstract or as a slogan, but in the real world. Lived experience of businesses, farmers, students, consumers alike across Britain must conclude that Brexit has failed. The promised freedoms have materialised as red tape. The sunlit uplands are dim and fogged by trade barriers, worker shortages, and diplomatic frictions. And the blame, it lies not at one door, but at three, at least three. Theresa May, who delayed, dithered, and devised deals destined to die. Liz Truss, who delivered with frenzied velocity and economic hallucination. A mad experience by someone as mad as a hatter. And Boris Johnson, who, for all his failings, was at least attempting to mop up the mess left by May, even if he used a flamethrower rather than a mop. Sunak tried to repair the damage done by Truss, but the repairers are always a step behind the arsonists. So, we've got Theresa May, we've got Liz Truss. And now, for the third, because I don't think Boris Johnson or Sunak are as bad as Theresa May and Liz Truss. I think Johnson has got many, many failings, and there's probably not room here or time here to enumerate them all. But essentially, he was cleaning up a mess, and Rishi Sunak certainly was cleaning up a mess. And then there's Rachel Reeves, herself in this eerily familiar role, the economic pandemic on duty after the combined wreckage of Jeremy Hunt and Kwasi Kwarteng. And I think in this case, though I want to blame Rachel Reeves because I think she's inadequate, I think she has the best intentions in a way that Liz Truss and Theresa May were just simply out of their depth. Rachel Reeves is not out of her depth, but the damage done by her predecessors is so enormous. It's beyond the repair that a little bit of tinkering can establish. What faces Rachel Reeves is enormous. What faces Rachel Reeves requires a reset. That's the problem. And she, therefore, I think, joins the long list of those left standing at the podium promising stability while growth stumbles. So she is the third big problem. It's like one of the ancient Greek goddesses with three heads. And I'm sorry about that. Rachel Reeves is slightly less culpable than the other two, but she is culpable, and she is unable to move things forward under the present format. So the tangible consequences of Brexit: the UK exports to the EU have stagnated. British firms face duplicate regulatory burdens. Recruitment gaps plague everything from agriculture to healthcare. Trade deals once hailed as the new holy grail have either been toothless or toxic, and that's Kemi Badenoch's fault, isn't it? Of course, this isn't to say that Europe was a wonderful experience. Europe was not. And you only have to look at George Eustace's actions in stopping the short-term visas for students coming over from Eastern Europe picking tulips that destroyed, in a matter of months, the Lincolnshire, the tulip industry in the Fens, an industry that I grew up with. And now the Trump trade dream is back, with J.D. Vance promising, or floating promises, of a good chance for the UK-US trade deal. And the terms, they'd make a Victorian pawnbroker blush. Concessions on agriculture, chlorine chicken, hormone beef. On medicine pricing, meaning the NHS pays more. On tech taxes, giving carte blanche to US giants while we hollow out our high streets. This isn't partnership, this is procurement by pressure. And Trump's trade policy is not about mutual benefit, it's about leverage, loyalty, and the illusion of strength. The 10% blanket tariff on UK goods is not a warning shot, it's a baseline. And the UK, already more generous in purchases from the US than vice versa, now faces punitive treatment regardless of deficit or diplomacy. Even if Starmer were to grovel for a deal, and I'm sure he could grovel, it would likely demand regulatory disalignment from Europe, effectively killing the EU reset. And that's no minor ask. US demands would strike at the heart of our consumer protection, environmental standards, online regulations, and the relationship between Northern Ireland and the rest of Ireland. One wrong step and Britain could find itself globally decoupled from Brussels while economically tethered to an unstable America ruled by a giant baby in a wig behind the Resolute desk. And the smarter option is the quieter one, a strategic reset with Europe. As Lord Darroch, her former US ambassador, notes, if you want a quick win on growth, reducing EU trade friction is the obvious answer. He's the former US ambassador. He's our former US ambassador. If anybody knows, it must be Lord Darroch. The EU remains our largest market. Aligning on export rules, streamlining food regulations, rebuilding service access is not about reversing Brexit, it's about surviving Brexit. Rachel Reeves has signalled something like this, but she needs to now make good if she's going to rescue her reputation, and it is possible to rescue that reputation. She speaks of a refresh in our relationship with Brussels, and she hints at aligning regulations in sectors like chemicals. It's modest but meaningful, and the EU summit on the 19th of May will be a test. Will the UK take the reset seriously or treat it as another photo opportunity while quietly betting on Trump's return? And here's the deeper dilemma. The EU will fracture further. Hungary will go off. It's already reworking its own approach to sanctions in Russia. Trade deals are not just economics. They shape national identity. Do we want Britain to be the European gateway or America's European empire? Do we want to lead as a stable, rules-based actor in Europe's economic community? Now, in the past, we were a gateway for Europe to America. I don't think we can be that anymore. I don't think we can do that anymore. If we could negotiate that, if Rachel Reeves could actually manage that trick, we already had it. We gave it up. For what? Do we want deregulated digital markets and deregulated poultry? Or do we want secure standards and secure alliances with our neighbours, who we would be required to defend if Russia became more aggressive? Yes, we might grow richer on paper under a Trump deal, but we'd also risk becoming politically poorer, adopting America's culture wars, corporate lobbying, commercial vulgarity. From AI to agriculture, we'd be signing away discretion for access. And access to what? The failure of Brexit is no longer a debate, it's a reality. And proper politics doesn't deal with what could have been, it deals what is. So the moment the Brexit decision, the Brexit referendum was made, we had a choice. We either regarded it as advice and took it on board as advice, it was supposedly an advisory referendum, or we recognised that it was an order and we got on and did it. What Theresa May gave was a dithering where it was neither one thing nor the other. And that was wrong. Delay is not an answer. Decision is an answer. And the question is whether Britain now doubles down on its delusions or takes the adult path towards recovery. We can play the blame game as much as we want, but in the end that doesn't get us anywhere. Reeves, for all her constraints, seems aware of the stakes. Reeves is not a Liz Truss. Reeves is not a Theresa May. Reeves is clear-sighted. And we need to trust that she can do her job. Otherwise, she will be consumed into that trinity of inadequacy. And history will recall the last 10 years as defined by three people: Theresa May, Liz Truss, and Rachel Reeves, because Starmer is almost irrelevant. I would dearly like Rachel Reeves to pull away from that. I think she can. And the way to pull away from that is effectively to re-engineer a post-Brexit relationship with Europe, and with the probable departure of Hungary from the European fold, there is room for Britain, there is room for Albania, there is room for Turkey, there is room for Serbia, by the way. And I think there's room for an outer orbit of Europe, and we need to get down and structure that as soon as possible. And if that means we are rubbing shoulders with a bizarre Hungary, well, that's fine. That's fine. It's better to have debate than to have defiance. The US deal is seductive, yes, cloaked in flags, friendship and fantasy, but the price is far too high. The holy grail of Brexit cannot be found in Trump Tower. And we shouldn't sell sovereignty for chlorinated chicken nor autonomy for artificial smiles. We need to reset before there's nothing left to rescue.